right, so uh, to be nice with everybody's time, let's go ahead and start. Today we have Michael Reilly and Brandon Murphy and Jason Drayer to talk to us about the new hybrid office and this ever-changing landscape. So with that, I'll give you the word for my friend Brandon.
Thanks, Al. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brendan Murphy, and I'm the sales director for VSGi. I'd like to just take a quick moment to introduce you to who we are. VSGi is a nationwide AV integration firm with a focus on collaboration technologies. We've been in the business for 30 years, servicing thousands of customers across the country in all verticals, including commercial, federal, healthcare, higher education, and many more. We take a product agnostic consultative approach to ensure that each custom solution we develop for our customer is based on their objectives, not just a list of products that we are trying to shoehorn customers into. Our award-winning engineering teams have been recognized for accomplishments in both design and implementation, as well as the ability to support our customers after for the life of their technology investment. We have a proven track record of designing, installing, and supporting technology solutions for our customers in a wide range of environments, from basic video conferencing carts to fully integrated conference room and boardrooms, to comprehensive global digital signage deployments, to full-scale command and control centers. We maintain the highest level certifications with the top manufacturers in the industry, which allows us the ability to recommend the best solution for each customer. One of the biggest areas of development in the AV industry over the past 24 months has been the increasing demand for BYOM, or bring your own meeting into conference rooms. How do you implement a flexible solution that allows users to bring their preferred meeting platform, including Microsoft Teams, Zoom, WebEx, Pexip, or any other platform, into a design workspace? That's what we're here to today to discuss with our friends from Barco, who have several solutions to meet that need. The good news, VSGi has extensive experience designing and installing solutions of this nature into a myriad of environments. This effort includes not just great collaboration products, such as Barco's ClickShare conference, but the ability to connect system peripherals, such as world-class audio solutions, USC and Shure, to provide a robust meeting experience for users both in the room, as well as those connected virtually. We're excited to have you all here with us today. We want to encourage you to ask questions throughout. Please do so in the chat. We'll be monitoring that actively, and we'll try to answer questions as we go. And with that, let's get into it. I'd like to introduce you to Mike Reilly of Barco. Mike, take it away.
Hey, thanks again, Brendan, and hopefully everyone's having a good Thursday. So I want to go over the whole hybrid collaboration space and kind of what we've been experiencing and seeing here at Barco. So this first slide I think about my life back in March when I was traveling maybe 80% of the time up and down the whole East Coast and running ragged and working crazy number of hours, which I think everybody else can kind of simulate with. But having been in an airport in over a year now, I'm working from home. I think everybody else, I'd look back here, looks like everybody else is at home. And so people aren't traveling. We're doing all these kind of video conferencing type things in our house. And I think it's expanded more than just work, right? I mean, my mom is retired and she's doing Zoom calls with family and stuff like that. And I've done some other kind of ones with guys and gals from high school and other stuff. So it's really crossed over into all different facets of our life here, both professionally and personally, right? But the one thing we're seeing as we all kind of get ready about thinking going back to work is kind of how are we going to work and how are we going to do all this and change? Because video has always been 1 or 2 years away from being mainstream, but it's here now, right? And the question is, how are we going to collaborate in all these different areas? I love this slide here because it shows kind of like an open seating area, and they quickly adapt to the area where they've got, they've got a display and they've got a couple of all-in-one combo UCC type of platforms, so people start sharing, right? Because not everyone's going to be at work all the time. We're kind of getting used to that, right? So Barco did in September a global kind of survey and did a report, and we'll be able to send this out to everybody after the call. But I wanted to touch on a couple of highlights, and it really kind of goes over some of the changes that we're seeing out there. So kind of jumping into that briefly here. So one is we're seeing that when people come back, when we get back, and I think we're all looking forward to more of a kind of a work life kind of a little bit more out of the house normalcy. but it's not going to be like coming back from the 4th of July weekend or the end of the year holidays. We're not going to come back 5 days a week, right? It's not going to be the way that it was. Things will always evolve and change, but we're seeing a global trend of people thinking it's going to be maybe 2 days at home and 3 days at work, or it's going to be kind of a shift here, but it's not going to be, we're all right back, right? And then also we're seeing that hybrid meetings are the new normal, right? So as we think about it today, I've done a couple Teams calls. This is my second Zoom call today. I was on one call, the guy wanted me to switch over and go to WebEx. So I've done about 5 or 6 calls today, and I've used 3 software platforms, right? So these different ways of connecting are not going to go away. So even if though my company's got a standard of Teams, I'm sitting here on a Zoom call right now, right? So I can't always control the way it's going to go, right? We're also seeing that people are going to be kind of more planned and more structured. There's been surveys out for a while that people kind of felt like if the person running the meeting was late, or someone showed up late, or they weren't really planned, that it kind of didn't give off a good setting. But now that people aren't going to be in the office all the time, they're going to want to really make sure that when they're in there, they're going to be really productive. So they're going to want to have a lot of planned and structured time and a lot of videos and face-to-face type calls, right? We're also seeing, I'll have another chart on this in a second, but people are really used to using their own computer, right? So I talked about jumping around all these different platforms. Well, I've gotten used to using my computer, and that seems to be the interface people want to use the most, right? And I think if you can remember going back to the office, you started seeing a lot of these different type of cameras and different type of peripherals just popping up on top of monitors and things like that, right? So we were starting to see some of this infrastructure come in there, right? And I think also globally, everybody wants to be positive, and I think we know there's not going to be less meetings. We keep finding ourselves in more and more meetings, right? So just taking a look here. So of the survey, we found that people said, hey, in a meeting, what would you like to use? And 56% said they wanted to use their own laptop. They felt comfortable with their own computer. Now, jumping to the bottom, 18% said that, hey, I'd like to use my phone if I can use my phone, or maybe the tablet. So but that's basically 81% of the people want to use their device, right? That left 19% of the people, let's round it to 20, right? So hey, I'd like to just walk into the room and use what's there, right? I think that for me, that would be easier for me, right? But even still, for that percentage of people, they still may want to take what's on their computer, like I'm sharing right now, and bring that on the screen, right? So I think in this overall situation, we can say that the entire area is addressable towards people wanting to use their computer in some capacity, unless you're only going to be passive and just verbally, physically, and mentally sharing. So I thought that was really kind of an interesting thought there, that people want to use their own device, right? And with that, it kind of gets to the point we've been talking about here. It's like everyone's kind of doing like the gentleman on the left here. They're doing their own experience at their house and floating around the house or wherever they're working. And then as we go back to the office, well, it's like, well, how do I take that experience that I've really gotten very comfortable with, navigate well with, how do I move that into the office, right? How do I grab all those resources that are in there? And how do I make that happen and make it happen easily, right? That's the big question that we all sit here and ask ourselves, like, what do we need to do here to make this all work, right? So that's the idea. And that's where this whole concept Barco came up with in the beginning part of the year, which was BYOM, which stands for Bring Your Own Meeting, right? So for those of you that know using a Kodak or what you're using and everything else, but the idea is that your computer is going to be the video conferencing platform, right? You know it, right? You know the software, you know it's secure, you know your passwords, it's synced up to your calendar, you're doing it day in, day out. So that's BYOM. That's where the market's going, this whole agnostic BYOM overall area. And what Barco's saying is, wouldn't it be great? You walk in the room with your computer, you plug in the Barco ClickShare button, and then you just share, and then you're in the meeting. So that's the idea. It's going to be that easy. That's the idea. And we're saying it's going to be that quick, it's going to be that easy, and it's going to be just like being at home, but you're in the office. So we had to create a new platform for this, and we're calling it ClickShare Conference. All right. So just a little backtrack here. So about 8 years ago, I've been here with Barco a little over 5. So we cut the cord, right? So it shows HDMI here, but if you can think back 8 years ago, we were still making this analog to digital transition, and we were also getting rid of the VGA cable. So the question was it VGA? Was it HDMI? Well, with the button, which was USB, we got rid of that, right? And we've been doing a great job with that for 8 years, and a bunch of you may already have it or used it, and we thank you for your support. But with the new ClickShare Conference, the idea is, what do we do about all these USB peripherals, which are cameras, speakers, microphones, and the like? So the idea now is going to be, what we want to do is cut the cord there. And we're going to basically say, hey, we don't care if it's a Mac or a PC. We don't care what software you're running on it, right? You can run Cisco, Zoom, BlueJeans, Google, whatever you want, right? And you can virtually use almost any peripheral that you want, but we do have a select list of things we know are going to work that we're testing it out. So you know it's going to work and what the compatibility is going to be, right? So you can float through and do whatever you want. And and this slide here kind of gives you an idea on the left of kind of the way it is now, right? You've got your display, you need an HDMI camera. You've got your Logitech meetup. It could be Poly, could be a whole bunch of different products. There's like a little processor board, then they bring something out to the table, you bring your HDMI in, maybe there's a touch panel, lots of cables, lots of process, and everything else. You know, some people may look at that and say, that's not many cables. Some people may look at that and go, oh my God, I'm totally overwhelmed, right? So we've been doing for a while with the ClickShare is just taking the unit. This is an example of one of the newer ones, and just taking the HDMI and plugging it into the display, and then you're done, right? But now with the cameras, we have multiple USB ports on here. We can plug in the camera, the speaker, the microphone right into here, and then you don't need any cables, right? You're able to just plug the button into the computer, and then away you go. All those resources that were in the computer, that were in the base unit now, are now wirelessly brought out to the table. So you can see I've got 0 wires going from where the display is over to the table. So that's a huge savings too from a facility standpoint as well. So that's kind of in a big rough nutshell how everything would be wired together. Now look, if you want ceiling microphones and you want to use ceiling speakers and you want to use a real nice pan tilt zoom camera, not a problem. We can work with you on that. That's not a problem. VSGi can provide some great solutions with that, and I'll circle back to that later. But in a very broad stroke, this is kind of how it's all tied together. So you can see very, very easy, right? It can be very, very simple, right? So with that, Jason, do we have any questions that popped up in the chat or anything at all so far?
We do not, Michael. You're doing a great job, everybody.
All right. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. All right. All right, so I'm going to move on here from this lovely graphical picture here. So I was just talking about how everything's compatible, right? So we've spent a lot of time with an alliance program. Now, I'm going to date myself. I've been in this business from the 80s, but even the 90s, when we first started doing a lot of integration, and you had no idea if stuff was going to work, right? And the programmers had a lot of work to do. They were timing out how many seconds after they turned it on to trigger this, to trigger that, because nothing could seamlessly work together. Well, we've worked really hard with this alliance program with these other manufacturers, and we're basically signing mutual NDAs, and we're co-developing the products so that they're going to mutually work together, right? So as they come up with new firmware features and new products, we're going to be ready for that with our products. So when you tie them together, it's going to work. So as the end user, easy connection, it just works. From the IT standpoint, you know your client's happy and they're ready to go. If you're an AV integrator like VSGi, they've got the satisfaction knowing that their main clients are secure with what they're recommending so that their end user has a great experience. And that's always what it's about, right? It's always about the end user having a good experience. It's about the experience and the meeting. And we're all about the technology. But from the end user's perspective, it's really like, hey, I just want this stuff to work so I can do whatever my business is, right? And I think that's the overall idea. So we've got products that we've really vetted out. We've got some other ones which we're vetted out, but not as in depth, and we're looking to move things along. But the point would be there's a huge ensemble of companies that we're co-working together with. And everybody sees this whole market as a huge, huge segment of where the market's going. It's the most explosive market out there. And you can see there's some really big players and other people that we're still working with that aren't on here, but they haven't signed the mutual documentation yet. So once again, lots of good names, lots of good products. And I also want to talk about here, we're talking about things in your meeting room, and we would like to have them on the network to be managed. So one thing about Barco, ClickShare, and the other products you saw, these are all high-end products that are built for your network. These are not consumer items, right? So they're secure. They're designed to be on the network. Barco has made a lot of efforts at being ISO certified. We have a couple of certifications as well. If you can put the units on your network, we can manage the units, right? When you're managing the units, you can keep everything up to date, and I'll circle more into that. You can also pull reports, and we've got a 5-year warranty on the product with advanced replacement. So this is really a professional integration solution that would work well. And we are working with small, medium, large, global companies, everyone, higher education, government, the whole thing. These units are also TAA compliant. All right, so I've been talking a lot about the Barco button and everything else, but we've been spending a lot of time, effort, and investment in the apps, right? So circle back to that. So we've got the button, but all hardware needs software behind it. So the new button is the 4th generation of the buttons. If you used the ClickShare before, you'll say it looks kind of similar, but there is like a new little small sub button on there. And originally that was just a pause. That's all it was, but there's more, and I'll circle back to that, right? But the button now will connect in 7 seconds. So that's really quick. You plug it in, 7 seconds later, boom, you're ready to go. Once it connects, all those resources that are in the unit, camera, speaker, mic, and light, they're all pulled into the computer. They're even there if you're not running an application. So it doesn't have to be that you're running Zoom to use it. Camera, I grab that camera. If I just typed in, if I just started to play music, I could send the music out there just like I could any other audio system in the room, right? And then once again, you're going to basically just click the share as we've always done. And then we've been talking about the collaboration. So that's all going to be there as well, right? So when you plug the unit into your computer, there's a slide I'll show in a second, which is going to say, hey, it's going to be received as a CD-ROM, right? So not a storage device. And what's going to happen here is you're going to basically be able to view the room display, do the audio mute, and you'll have a whole bunch of features in here as well, which I'll circle into, right? So what I can do here is I can plug it in before I share. I can say, hey, I want to do extended desktop, which would be a virtual screen to my right. I can do local view, which I'll do in a second. I can also decide to share a window of what I want to share. About would tell me which base unit I'm using, the firmware of the button, the firmware of the unit, and the other information about the other peripherals. I can always quit as well. But let's talk about local view, right? So let's just pretend for a second here, this slide's kind of missing a camera here, but we're on a video call with the far end. And the woman here is presenting, and the gentleman on the left would say, hey, I'd like to show what's on my computer. Now, it could be using a button, could be using an app, could be a phone. But what happens is once he says, I'd like to share, everybody in the room can see what's going on, but the far end can't. But if she has selected the local view, that means her computer, since she's the host, is going to see whatever's on the screen, and then is going to get pushed to the far end, right? So the far end is seeing what this gentleman is showing on a video call while she's hosting it, right? So, and that's the same way ClickShare has always been very easy to use and to share with. The only difference here is that we're now saying in a video call, we just want to do this local view option, and then you're good to go. Now, we also, with some units, have the ability, if it's an interactive display, if you can annotate on the screen, that would also show up, and you can do that at the screen. So we'll see when we're ready for touchscreen capabilities again, but the feature is built in there. Now that's a different one to kind of grasp. Anyone have any questions on that or anything else so far, Jason?
Yes, we have had a couple of questions come in.
Oh, great.
The first question we should address is, Mike, if the user has a laptop that does not have USB-C, is it possible to use an adapter to connect to a USB-A port?
That's a great point, Jason. So when we did the first ClickShare units, we only had A because A was the only thing that was out. Then we developed the C button. You could go either way. The new units are only USB-C, and any general adapter will work. So you just put an adapter converter from C to A and you're good to go. So that would work with the older units, and it works with the newer units as well.
Great. And then the second question is, how would we be able to use this technology for meetings of 50 plus? Is it a two-way connection?
No, what do you mean by two-way connection?
Well, I think the answer to the question is that that really has more to do with the web conferencing platform that you've selected, right? So the ClickShare solution, the ClickShare conference solution, is meant to make it easier to exist in the room and access the infrastructure wirelessly. So if you've got a camera, if you've got an audio device, basically we're going to be able to access that wireless USB via the button. So as far as how it will be communication wise, it really depends on what kind of a call. For instance, right now we've got this set up as a Zoom web conference. So while you can hear us as the panelists, we can't actually two-way communicate with you folks as the attendees. However, we could have easily set this call up as more of a traditional Zoom call, and the communication would be two-way.
Yeah, and I think to that point too, Jason, maybe you can expand on this, or Brendan can. But in a very simple room, you just use some very small devices. But maybe in a more elaborate boardroom or something else, you've got a lot of more equipment in there. You may have like a DSP with some ceiling mics and some extra speakers, and that will work as well. Maybe Jason or Brendan wants to kind of complement how you can coordinate all that together.
Certainly. So as long as whatever infrastructure is in the room terminates to USB. So you could have a very large training room with multiple cameras, for instance, and then feeding out of that into some kind of USB bridge. You could have several type of ceiling microphones. You could have multiple microphones on the table. And as long as those are all managed so that the endpoint is connected via USB to the ClickShare device, you will have access to those devices wirelessly through the ClickShare button. So this really will scale into any size room that you would like. It could, to Mike's point, it can work from the smallest huddle space all the way up to large training rooms and boardrooms, which really gives a lot of power to a great integration firm like VSGi, because they can look at the full space to see what coverage is needed for cameras, for microphones, for reinforcement in the room, and then basically just get all that down to a USB pipe, and it'll be very easily to access via the ClickShare, making the end user experience very, very simple, right? There's a lot of complicated things going on behind the scenes, but to you as the user, you're plugging in the button, it's recognized as the audio and video device, and you start your call, hit the button, and away you go.
Yeah, agree, Jason. I think the ease of use in a small space would be transparent over the larger space. It would just be basically VSGi working with the actual client over there, verifying what they wanted and designing an easy to use system and everything else. So yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's
one of the strengths has always been with ClickShare is people like to standardize on it, right? From a presentation standpoint, we've been very fortunate that folks have tried to fit different sizes of ClickShare units in each of their rooms. And the nice thing is with the conferencing platform, the same still applies. It will scale either way, which is nice.
Yep. No, I agree. That was a great question. So anything else, or are we good right now?
At this time, I believe we are clean.
All right. Well, keep the questions coming, please, everybody. That was great stuff. All right. So moving on. So this kind of local view. So the point I want to just kind of refer back to here is that ClickShare has always been very easy, just kind of very democratic, with people being able to jump on and jump off and everything else. And I just want to say, if you're on a video call, if the person that's hosting the call just selects, just jumping back here, if they just select that local view and then just run their meeting, it's the same thing the entire time here, right? It's the same experience as before. So we've added some flexibility of just saying, hey, we brought all this extra stuff in here, just do this one step here, and then you're good to go, right? Okay, so moving back to the app a little bit here, if you've got the app on your computer, you can walk in the room, and it's going to say, hey, I kind of can see these rooms as far as proximity goes. It can be up to 4, and you can choose the one that you want. You can also, now if you've got the button, you don't need to worry about that. It's going to sync up to the one. But if you're using the app, it's going to be that option. You also have the option of picking or not picking, but you can make it where there's a numeric password will pass up, which is auto changing. So once you've done that, you type the numbers, pops on the screen, it's gonna say, I'm ready to share. Now, if it's just the button, you would just skip that part. And then just like with ClickShare with the button, when it's ready to share, the LED around the perimeter is a solid white light. In this case, the button's gonna behave the same exact way. So if I were to click the white button, it would turn red, it would collapse. It would give me the ability of doing pause, or I could basically just move my mouse away and this little half a red C will pop up, letting me know that I'm sharing, and I can move that around the screen, but it's off in the corner. When I'm done, I can just choose to stop sharing, and then I can just click leave or just walk out of the room or just disconnect the button, and then I'm good to go. So very, very easy to use. So we went over some of the features, but I just want to just review real quick that we can freeze the screen. You can choose a window. Moderation will be coming where if you want to be the moderator, like a web page, you'll kind of right click on something in the button, and it will show you the display and all the people that want to share, and to be able to drag on and drag off the people that you want to share. So the moderator is in control of who's on the screen and then when, right? We've talked about the second screen. We've talked about the touch interactivity. So lots of features and lots more coming on the roadmap, looking for signage and a whole bunch of other things. So a lot of things coming, a lot of development. The base unit updates are quarterly pretty much, but the app on the computer is monthly, all right? And then as you can see at the bottom, we're saying working on, well, we're not really working on it anymore. We actually recently just launched a new app for the Mac, or I keep saying Mac, but I really want to say iPhone or iPad, or a Android type tablet or phone as well. So what's really cool here, it's going to be the same interface in a sense, the same experience on two different platforms, and it's going to be much more robust. Now, that's not saying you can't still use AirPlay and you can't use Google Home or Chromecast or whatever they're calling it right now. You can still do that, but we have a very robust app that people will basically be able to evolve and develop, and we'll basically be able to see how it's being used and really try to enhance the overall experience, because that, once again, that's what it's about, just giving more features for those that are looking at it. So if you've got a ClickShare right now, the cool thing is the app and the handheld wireless ones will work with the existing products as well as the new products. So once again, although the buttons may not be interchangeable from the old system to the new system, the app and the handheld devices will work universally with each. So once again, the same kind of experience, the same interface. So now that's a little bit of a new twist on that. Just take a quick pause. Any questions come up from that at all, Jason, or no?
So there was one additional question that came up
great.
that I answered in the chat, but I thought it'd be good to highlight.
Okay.
Someone asked if we could take the output of the ClickShare and connect it to a projector.
Yeah, well, basically the output is going to be 4K 30 and or lower. Don't get me wrong, or lower. Standard HDMI output, so it can go to a switch, it can go to a switcher, a matrix switcher, it can go to a projector, a flat panel display, it can go to whatever you want it to go to.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that's important to note. Once again, back to that scalability idea, it's just as much at home going into a 47-inch or 55-inch TV as it is to going into a big 30,000 lumen projector for an auditorium or an LED video wall, or a multi-cell LCD video wall. So it really does scale into anything we would need. So.
Agreed. Yeah, it was a great question. I neglected to state that, but we'll go over the units and show the inputs and outputs at the end. Okay, so we'll keep moving on here. So I think we've gone over a bunch of this, but Barco is always about clicking the bar. Some people call it click and share and everything else, but we really were saying, hey, it's really just one click to join, one click to share, one click to sync. So what does that mean, right? So we're saying is if you were a power user and you put the software on the app on your computer, it's going to sync up with your calendar, right? So you could walk in, it's going to ask if you want to just join the meeting, right? So really quickly syncing up with your computer. We're also going to give you the ability to control and mirror what's on the room. So if I had this microphone that's on the table, if I hit it and that hit mute, that would work. If I click mute in the application, it would show up on the unit down there as well on the table. Also controls, like right now I'm looking like where's my control for my camera I have here? and it was over there. So if you're worried about getting the remote control and touching the camera, you can do all that through the app, right? So you can control the audio, the video, what you're doing, what you're sharing, all through the app, which is great. And then we also talked about earlier, just confirming, like you can go in and look and see, is the system running? Do I have the latest software on the unit? Am I making sure that my system is up to date, is working well? And if I need to help somebody out, I can do a lot of that remote diagnostics if it's on the network, and then I'm managing, right? So, and then we also talked about like, hey, what if I want to share something that's on the screen? So once again, right in Teams, Zoom, WebEx, it's just going to work right within the overall program. You're just going to basically just start sharing, and what's on the computer is up on the screen, right? So just like you're doing in your meetings, I'm doing right now. Also, very low latency. We used to do 30 scrapes a second. Now we're doing 30 frames a second, right? Also, if you're doing the interactive display, that's going to tie in. So very low latency, very quick refresh, whichever way you want to look at it on the screen. All right. So that was the end of that part. Any other questions, Jason? Or I want to kind of talk a little networking and kind of management and that kind of stuff next.
No, at this time we are good. Thanks, Mike.
All right, we're going well here. All right, great. All right, so ClickShare has been known for a long time as being just, the product you don't have to have on the network, right? So the question is kind of like, well, what's the advantage of having the unit on the network? Kind of comes up, right? So if we go to the right, so instead of starting the top left, let's go to the right column here. If the base units are on the network, then you don't have to go to each room to upgrade the firmware and keep it up to date. You can do it all remotely. You can even have it do it automatically on its own. So you could make it maintenance free if you wanted to, right? So that's all free, right? Now, the question would be, well, hey, if I've got a button, there's software in here, how do I upgrade the button, right? Well, if I upgrade the base unit, the button will be upgraded the next time it's used. So it won't like wait till I download it while it's being used. Unbeknownst to the end user, it will automatically update. So if I'm using it and I only use it for 2 minutes and it didn't finish the update and I gave it to Jason, when Jason went to use it, let's say he was on for 30 minutes because he's a long talker, right? So he finished the update and then he gave the button over to Brendan, and Brendan got whatever the newer features were going to be, right? Whatever that was going to be. But from the end user perspective, no concept, right? I'm going to get into how the units can be on or off the network. But if you're using a computer app, there are some advantages for having it and running it through the network, not mandatory, and I'll circle onto that. And the same thing with the phone, right? Because the ClickShare base unit is never an access point, which means I can't go to that and then get on the internet. No matter how it's set up, it's never a gateway, never gets you outside of the network. It's just you're kind of in the space and then you're working on it. But I'm going to circle back to that. And if there's any questions about that, post them, and then as we walk through it, we can definitely address them. So from the management perspective, some people are cool with the cloud on the right-hand side, and they're all about the cloud, going out and getting stuff. And some other people are like, you know what, we're kind of not cool with the cloud, so we want everything on premise. So if you can manage them in either way, doesn't really matter to us. We can assist you in both capacities, right? So big picture, we can do it either way, right? So once again, if it's on the network, you can keep it up to date. We can basically manage them in one of 3 ways, right? Well, 4 ways. One is you can just put it on the network, it takes care of itself, right? You can do it on the cloud. The second way is we can use this appliance, which can manage up to 500 units. And then if you use the cloud, you can link them together, right? Then if you say, hey, I don't want to use that, I'd like to use a virtual server, which we can support. Or if you want to get the software and you can put it on a Windows machine, that works too. So the software on the virtual server, the software on the Windows machine, free. If you want to use the cloud directly, free. If you want to buy the appliance, and that's about $2,500 list price, right? VSGi can give you a better price. But in any one of those scenarios, you can manage the whole system here. And we've got the ability to give you all kinds of great metrics. So if you want to pull reports and see usage and the time of the day and the traffic and is the firmware up to date, you can dig into a dashboard to see everything. You can set up different views. You can see the devices in something like this. I can check to see the buttons that are all being used, where they were used last, everything else. I can schedule. So if I say, hey, there's a new firmware out. I don't want to just push it out. I want to schedule it. So I'm going to do it by regions, by floors, however you want to do it. You can schedule the units to happen at night. If you tell it to manage it automatically, if the unit doesn't see any activity for 8 consecutive hours, it'll go out and take a look and then notify you, or it will do the upgrade. So the idea would be that would be at a time, hopefully, where we're all sleeping, right? Unless someone's working till 2 o'clock in the morning, which I hope we're not in the office at 2 o'clock in the morning anymore, right? But then I hope other people might be working and using it before 10 o'clock. Okay, we went over insights we're seeing and then settings. So this is just a quick kind of screenshot of the dashboard. And once again, we talked about the 3 ways of managing it, right? Like you can go directly to the cloud. You can use the appliance, Windows machine, or the virtual server to go out to the cloud, manage it that way. You can say, hey, I'm just going to keep it completely on-prem. Gives you a little visualization as to how that part is going to work. So maybe a good time for me to take a breath here and just see if we've got any questions came up on the chat at all.
No questions, but I just wanted to reiterate, everything that Mike is reviewing here as far as the flexibility of having the unit on and off the network, all the different ways to update it, the quarterly firmware updates, the new feature sets, all of that is included in the cost of the ClickShare unit, right? There are no additional fees, there's no recurring revenue costs, there's no hidden things. So when you make the investment in the ClickShare platform, you're basically getting access to all of this. So folks that were early adopters that have been using ClickShare for years, as we've rolled out these new features, as we've added the support, they suddenly had access to that. And that's the business model that we intend to continue for the future. So.
Yeah, and I think also, Jason, so the new warranty on the existing product is 3 years, the new warranty is 5 years. Regardless, if somebody had a problem, they can call VSGi, or if they call Barco, Barco's doing advanced replacements. So, but just all we need to know what the serial number is and where we want to ship it, and then we give you a return label and everything else. So very, very easy to do, manage. And the nice thing is we don't really have many failures. So it's really pretty awesome, right? So, okay. So just real quick here, the slide here talks about like when you first get the unit, it's off the network. Now, for some reason, this PowerPoint side, I'm missing a guest laptop and employee laptop on the left-hand side, right? But so from a networking standpoint, just big picture real quick here. What we're saying is that the Wi-Fi client and the Barco unit is basically what the red antenna arrows are showing, right? So you can see if I'm using my phone, whether I'm the employee or the guest, I'm using the Wi-Fi in that device. So which means I don't have access to the internet unless I use a data plan. So if I've got a tablet or something without a data plan, then I'm just showing what's here, there, and then that's it, right? The employee or the guest using the button, you can see since the button has its own Wi-Fi client built inside of it, we're not touching the network port. So they can get on whichever network they want if they want to, and away we go, right? So for the conferencing aspect, that works flawlessly, right? Because we can just transmit back and forth, get on the internet through the network, bing, bang, boom, we're ready to go, right? So you can run it that way. This slide, this section is kind of 2 parts, right? So part number 1 would be, for me, is just put the unit on the network. You can still keep the connectivity standalone over here, but you at least can have it on the network to manage it, right? So I think if nothing else, I like to say to people, let's just manage the units, right? Let's give the best experience to the end user, right? Now, if your IT guy or gal is in a giving mode, typically, if it's on the network, they can connect the wireless network to the wired network, right? So in this instance here, we're showing that the employee using the mobile device is connected to their Wi-Fi network. And then since it's tied together, they can get in here. But you can see the guest mobile and the buttons are still outside of the overall network. Now, if I had a computer over here to the left, I would show that the employee laptop is getting onto the corporate wireless network, and then it's all tied in and they're good. The employee guest LAN would be using the ClickShare network, no network capabilities, only one Wi-Fi card in the computer. The next slide just kind of shows what happens if you say, hey, you know what, I can't have any of these wireless networks. I want to run everything through my network. So what we've now done is now everything is running through the corporate or the guest network, and all this traffic that I had off of the network, I now have added this extra bandwidth onto the network. And that really leads me to the next slide here, where you really want to have a quality of service overall conversation with the IT department saying, hey, how do we want to, if we have to run on the network, how do we want to manage it through, right? So if you're going to be app only and you don't want to use the button, or you want to do both either way, and you need to be on the network, you kind of need to start in this dedicated mode. But the great thing about Barco is we give you the flexibility to be anywhere you want in this overall spectrum here. And a lot of companies start all the way to the left and they kind of work their way to the right. So they go back and forth. So more and more devices are getting on the network. Companies are seeing and organizations are seeing that's more of a value and everything else, right? So, but it's a conversation to have, and it's a way to kind of provide some more value to your end users and more guarantee that things are working, and a way to monitor everything else. So there's definitely, there's a big trend in that overall category. And I want to confirm that we can do all this, and there's no extra charge from Barco. It's just a matter of just setting everything up appropriately as to how it needs to be. VSGi is awesome at this, and Barco is here to help out as well, because no two networks, no two rooms are the same, right? So,
Mike, that was something. Sorry to interrupt you. That was something I definitely wanted to add. Is some of this can seem a little daunting. Some of these decisions that you may have to make. That's what we're here to help with, is to provide that consulting, to provide that guidance, and to work with you to make the decisions that are most appropriate for your environment. So don't feel like, in looking at this slide, that these are things that you're going to have to navigate on your own. That's what we're here to help you do, along with everything else with this.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, exactly. Jason, anybody ask any questions or anything at all?
No, but just to put one last point on this whole thing, I think the other thing to reiterate is this is all possible, all these different scenarios Mike talked about, with the same pieces of hardware, right? So to Brendan's point, when you're trying to figure out, hey, what's right for us, the nice thing is every single ClickShare device follows the same plan. And to Mike's point, many of our users start to the far left, where they're like, hey, we just want to feel this out. We don't want to, we don't know where we want to go with this yet. Can we use the unit and not have to really involve a lot of IT and security? The answer is yes. And then when trust is grown and people adjust and kind of start to depend on the hardware, hey, we'd like to incorporate in the network. The beautiful thing is it's still that same box. It's just a question of going down this path. So that is a really, really strong thing that we have as far as the ClickShare platform that, quite frankly, the competition cannot do. So just wanted to put a point on that.
There you go. Excellent. All right. Well, we're near the end here, folks. I know you're all upset, but I know we haven't talked any kind of individual product yet at all. I just wanted to point out that the 20 and 30 are in the same smaller form factor. The one thing that's neat about these units is it's PoE plus a splitter. So I remember when I saw that, I said to myself, what the heck is that, right? Well, you're in luck. I have one right here, right? So, so if you're providing power over your Ethernet PoE, you would plug your network port in here. And then what happens is there's another loop through back out, and there's a little Y cable that comes with this one here. And then I would just plug the power into the base unit, so I could not have to have an outlet. Now, typically these are going to be at a display or someplace else there's power nearby, but some people like the idea of not having a power supply. So the 20 and 30 can do that. The camera resolution that these can support are 720p, which is what most of the programs are running, but there are higher res cameras as well. You can see the 20 comes with one button and the 30 comes with two buttons. So the number of inputs, number of images on the screen simultaneously mirror the number of buttons that the unit ships with, right? They can all do the same thing with all the different rooms. This unit here has a Kensington lock, network port, HDMI, and then the power supply. The flip side, I have a USB A and C button on here. So you can see very small. If I just hold the 50 up, you can see slightly bigger, a little bit bigger, right? This one needs an external power supply. This one, the cameras can do 1080p, so a little bit higher on the camera if the software platform can support that. This has got two extra USB A ports. It also has a HDMI input. So some people may say, hey, I kind of like to have a traditional HDMI input. That'd be really great. And the question may come, well, what's the advantage of having it inside the unit, right? I can just plug it into the TV, right? Well, the advantage of having inside the unit would be I can have multiple screens up at the same time, and one of them could be the wired computer. The other one is I don't have to switch the input on the TV. For me, that's almost like the big one, right? So if I want to just switch on, it just comes up. I don't have to get the remote or hit the touch panel. It just comes up on the screen, right? So very, very easy to use as far as that goes. So we've got 3 units in this category, and I want Brendan to kind of go on some more, but we're here to let you check it out, test it out, and answer any questions you have. So Brendan, maybe you want to kind of just jump in here for a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of different ways to try it out. One of the things that we did mention in the invitations for the webinar is that we are going to be doing a drawing for 5 of these units that we'll be providing to 5 of the folks on this call. So if you are one of the selected winners, your local account manager will reach out to you to work on how to get the unit to you. But even if you're not one of the winners, don't feel bad. We can still get you a demo unit. All you need to do is reach out to us. You can either reach out to myself, Mike, Paolo, whomever, and we'll provide you with our contact information. But reach out to us, and we're happy to work with you to make sure you can get a demo unit or 2 to kick the tires on.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, any of the different models that you need, and we can even work if someone needs a camera or something like that. We can work on the other items you might need to do a test. But yeah, whatever you need, we want to make sure that you're making an educated decision. And it doesn't have to go to the office. We know people are working from home, so we can send it wherever it needs to go and provide you as much technical support that you might need, right? Hopefully it's not a lot. Well, that's all I have. Jason, any other questions, or anybody have anything else they want to ask or anything at all?
This time, it looks like we have answered the questions. We'll see if anything else pops in. I'll let you know.
Okay, great. Well, that was awesome. I thank everybody for the time, and hopefully we got a nice day. We're all East Coast guys and gals. I think we got some nice weather out there. Maybe get a good walk or hike in before it gets. I'm not ready. I'm not really mentally ready for the winter yet myself. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna try to get a little outside time next day or 2. But yeah, if there's no more questions, maybe we say, hey, we asked you for an hour. We took 50 minutes. I got to come up with a new phrase for that, but everyone seems to say, we'll give you 10 minutes back or something like that, right? So there you go.
That's good.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Say goodbye. Take care.